Welcome everyone to the Alchemy Cafe, where we create conscious conversation. I am Laura Gavander, the founder of the cafe, and I'm so excited to welcome my guest today, Dr. Adam Sheck, who is also known as the Passion Doctor. He is a clinical psychologist, a couples counselor, a sex therapist, author, and blogger. Dr. Adam Sheck, the Passion Doctor, has been helping committed couples bring back the passion and reignite the spark in their relationships for over 25 years. He helps singles to understand and change their relationship patterns so that they can co-create healthy, loving relationships. He combines psychological and spiritual principles with just enough tantra to make it interesting as he supports singles and couples to connect deeply to themselves and each other. He has blogged about relationships and how we view each other in relationship at Elephant Journal, Good Men Project, and his own Passion Doctor blog. He's a man in the second half of life who is direct, humorous, and has enough Brooklyn in him to get the job done. Well, you know that as a fellow New Yorker.
There you go.
You can find more about Adam at www.thepassiondoctor.com. Welcome to the show, Adam.
Thanks so much, Laura. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. We had you on my blog talk radio show, a couple of years ago. And since I created this new website, which is all about expanding consciousness, there's one topic that I thought you can never give it enough time, and that is talking about relationships. And one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you on is, first of all, you're a man, right? Obviously.
Yeah, last time I checked, you're right.
And I don't think there's really enough men doing this kind of work. Most people think of relationship and couples counseling as being women, and I love that you bring the male perspective to this. So thank you.
My pleasure. You're welcome. I'm happy to bring it because you're right. It's needed, and often couples will see me over a female therapist, and it's nothing personal, but a heterosexual couple often. The female partner is the one initiating the contact for counseling. So the man feels ganged up against already if there are two women in the room. And, you know, it's unfortunate, it's sexist, it's stereotype, it's whatever it is, but sometimes they feel safer with another man. And of course, I'm not there to take sides. I'm there to work with a relationship. The couple is my client, my patient, not either individual. So I do my best to keep that balance and know who I'm working for, which is the greater good of the mutuality, not the individuality as much.
Right. And there's also the stereotype that men, they can express themselves and they don't understand feelings. And I just think having someone who has the background that you have and done the extensive work that you have and working with these people for so many years, you do bring the perspective of saying, wait a minute, that's not necessarily true. And I get it.
Yeah. It's, again, where there's smoke, there's fire. In the generalizations, there's a little truth, and there's not. And it's 2017. It's a little different for a small percentage of the population is a little more growth-oriented, a little more this and that. And that's who we have to work with to really leverage it to make a bigger change in the world.
Right, true. So what I really wanted to talk about with you is conscious relationships.
Yes.
And it's not something that we really address that often. I think the concept sort of scares people. Oh my God, what does that mean? Relationships are hard enough as it is, and you want me to be conscious in my relationship? So I'd love to know, what is your definition first of a conscious relationship, and how can people create one? It's a two-parter.
Well, how much time do you have?
I know, that's the thing. We could talk for days on this.
Enormous, and at the same time, the public gets hooked on buzzwords: conscious relationship, unconscious coupling, this, that, and it starts to become a joke. People are big in the words, and they lose the heart of it. They lose the spirit of it. They lose the soul of what this really is about. So I try to stay away from jargon. I try to stay away from whatever's in the popular, vernacular at this time or another. And I've probably done that all my life anyway. It's a rebellious thing, but it's also, I think, to keep a balance, because conscious is being awake, is being aware. And to get to a conscious relationship, you have to understand where you're coming from. You have to understand the psychology of relationship, the psychology of attraction, how we select our partners. And so much of that's unconscious. It's below our level of awareness altogether. I was doing a session with someone this morning, and I was talking about the fact that really we're never present in this moment. Just our neurology, just the way our physiology is, we're always half a second behind whatever's happening in the real world. So we're never in the moment. Our unconscious is always initiating whatever we're going to say, do, think before we even know what the moment is. So the best we can do is say no to whatever's coming up. So it's interesting. So back to conscious relationship. So when we're born, we're like sponges. We're absorbing everything, the sights, the sounds, the tastes, the smells. In one sense, we're tabula rasa. We're a blank slate. We do come in with temperament. We do come in with some pieces of predisposition toward personality and the rest, and sensitivities. And depending on your mythology, we may come in fully formed on some level too, tapped into collective, tapped into past. I don't know. But I do know that when we come in, whatever we're modeled is what we take in. So whoever our caregivers are, mommy, daddy, daddy, community, tribe, anything, that's what love is. And so to simplify, just primary caregivers, whatever they are, that's what love is. How they interact is what love is. So if dad is a raging alcoholic, love is a raging alcoholic. If mom is a self-absorbed narcissist, love is a self-absorbed narcissist. And there's good pieces too, but all of it goes into the computer. All of it's in there. So when we mature, when we begin to look for partners and possibly create families and mate, it's all in the unconscious. And when we meet someone who's got enough of those qualities, positive and negative, bam, the radar goes off and we're in love. And the dance starts, and it's like we're flooded with all these hormones, neurotransmitters, phenethylamine, oxytocin is really popular. I've been talking about it for 20 years, but it's popular now. All the bonding pieces, serotonin, dopamine around the reward system, we're all flooded with it. We're flooded with natural opiates, natural amphetamines. So we're hyped up. We don't need to sleep as much. We want to have more sex than we normally do. We, are not in our right minds. And we're drawn to this person, and perhaps that's, God, nature, spirit, whatever, cosmology you want to use, is the way to keep us together long enough to get through the species, propagate and get it going. Because those chemicals don't last for too long. Maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months, maybe a little longer. And when we're on them in that in love feeling, that romantic delusion feeling, we only see the positive qualities of our caregivers that are there. When that's done, we only see the negative, or we mainly see the negative. So now it's like, why am I with you? Everything you do irritates me. What used to be cute is really annoying now.
Right.
And we're in that power struggle state, because now it's like, who are we? What are we? Carl Jung, famous psychoanalyst, the therapist, blah, blah, psychologist from the 1950s on, said the first thing we have to do in a relationship is forgive our partners for not being our projected fantasy of themselves. And we have to start learning, who are we really with? Who are we really with? And that, we butt heads. We're in that power struggle trying to find out, and we're very reactive because we're triggered by all of our childhood stuff, most of us. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That gives us an opportunity, if we choose to consciously use a relationship as a tool, a laboratory for healing our wounds of childhood, for growing. That's an act of love that I'm giving to myself and my partner, to be loving, accepting, really conscious, getting to be an expert on them and myself, so that we can find a way to be together, to build a life together. And
that's if you stay and you don't bolt at that time.
Right. Well, that's a lot of what people do. It's like, oh, what was I thinking? Wrong one. And then they break up, and the next comes up, and it's the same program. It's the same blueprint. So now it's same shit, different day. And people can look and say, oh, I seem to have the same type here. My fourth wife seems to be the same as my first wife, and it's the same dance. So really, at some point, it behooves us to get on top of ourselves and our issues so that we can be happy with someone and they can be happy with us. That would be the conscious relationship, that at some point we choose, we've suffered enough, we've done enough, or we're evolved enough, or enlightened enough. Though my experience is pain is a bigger driver than the desire for personal growth. we say, I've had it. I surrender. I give. I have to learn a better way, a different way, a more conscious way. So that's what leads to that conscious relationship.
So in your experience, is it possible for people at that point, since so much of this is operating on the subconscious level or unconscious level,
Yes.
when we have the awareness that that's why we're butting heads, wow, this is programming that I'm not aware of, is it possible in that moment, and I'm sure this is when people decide to come to you, to say, wow, I want to work through this, even though I may not necessarily be aware of what's operating, I want to work through this.
Right. That's pretty much it. I mean, people don't come to see myself or other people that work with relationships because everything's great. You know, it's because there's an issue, and the research really shows that couples don't come into treatment until 6 or 7 years after they figure out there's an issue.
Wow.
So, you know, the deck is stacked against them at that point. And we can work what we can work, but the more we do in whatever relationship we're in, the more whole we are, the more together we are, the more developed we are, and we will start to be attracting in people more of that ilk. Like attracts like. If I'm, you know, at my base, least evolved, least developed, most reactive, least responsive, that's what I'm going to bring in, because who else would want to be with me? You know, if I'm this, why would this want to be with me? If I'm all that, you know, then I want an all that too.
Right.
So I always tell people water seeks its own level in terms of that. I mean, the fancy word is match differentiation, but you know, it's there. We're going to meet someone.
Vibration or energy, yeah, it's all.
Yeah, you know, it's the same thing. And you know, every theory has different jargon. Every spirituality has a different jargon. Every, you know, metaphysical belief has a different jargon, but it's the same thing. You know, we're all in this together. We're seeing people. We're seeing mirrors. When we find partners, we're either picking them. It's like the 3 Ps. We're either picking someone with those issues, we're provoking them to bring out those issues, or we project them onto them. We take our unresolved stuff and put it on someone else and see it as a mirror. So it's just how we are. And now there's so much great research in the neurobiology of it. It's like, so much is automatic just in the physiology, just our primitive brains from whatever issues go on early in life. It's just locked in there, and the only way through is, yeah, we can't stop it because it's there before we even know it, is to be able to take a breath and slow down and, you know, reconnect, bridge that gap.
Right, and that's why relationships can be so healing, is because they do, like you said, the mirror image and your issues. And if people are committed, and I would imagine both partners would need to be equally committed.
Yes.
You can have one conscious and one going about business as usual, because this person, like you said, is going to rise to a new level and be elsewhere. They're
going to sabotage it one way or another, or move out in love. I mean, that's the whole conscious uncoupling thing, which maybe yes, maybe no. It takes a lot to get to there, and I don't even know if that's a cop-out of things.
Yeah.
Relationships are what they are. We do our best. Nothing. I mean, most of it's not personal. Most people are not evil, malicious, sociopathic. They're just, you know, have distortions and don't have tools.
Right. Well, I always say that there's always 3 elements of a relationship. There's your shit, there's the person's shit, and then there's your stuff together. There's a third entity.
It's our shit.
It's our shit. And it's going to be a whole other, you know, that's going to be a whole nice mix. You know, what happened to, you know, what was your parental thing and whatever, and what was your experience with past relationships. So they're complicated no matter what.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much that's the truth. We can cut to the chase. We all want love, connection, security. Those are the things as children we don't have. We want security. We want to feel safe. As infants, we only feel safe because someone's taking care of us. We can't take care of ourselves.
Right.
So safety is important. Love, we naturally are drawn to love, be loved. As infants, we don't know any better. That's who we are at that point. And we need someone to reflect back who we are, what our self-image is. Who am I? And I learned that through the mirrors of our caregivers and teachers and community and the rest.
Right.
Those are the 3 pieces.
So what about the idea of going to counseling at the beginning of a relationship? Is that something that just takes the romance out of it and all the fun? Or do you actually suggest, wow, people want to do this. Cool.
Well, I'm, in terms of marriage, which I don't know if it's in or out of vogue these days, but I'm a big advocate of premarital counseling. Find out who you're with, even if you're only doing 4 sessions, just to find out what you don't know, because you don't know what you don't know. And you're not going to learn about your partner until you're with them a long time. This can facilitate that, expedite it. So for that, and for any relationship, I think some people are proactive. I worked with somebody this morning who, she's in a relationship with a man. She's had a few marriages under her belt. He has 2, and she wants to get ahead of the curve. She knows that some issues come up. She really cares about this guy in the relationship, so she wants to be proactive about it. So yeah, I recommend it, absolutely. It's much easier to deal with it before it's a catastrophe.
I think part of the reason, though, that people wouldn't seek it out is they're in the honeymoon phase and everything is wonderful and you're presenting your best self. So is the other person. Why would we ever need to go to counseling when everything is so wonderful?
We're in love and everyone else has got problems, which is why they don't come in for 6 or 7 years.
If it even lasts that long, that sounds like a long time to me.
Well, in LA, that's like a lifetime, so.
Well, in New York, it's pretty much the same.
I know, it's the truth. So yeah, I'd say the sooner is better than later. And I think when people have enough experiences with enough relationships, they recognize that. Or they get so gun shy that they don't open up, and that's really sad too. Then they're depriving themselves of the gifts of a relationship.
Right. So the honeymoon phase, as we know, ends. It has to end because it's not a realistic time period for a number of reasons. Yes. We're presenting our best selves. That we're kind of just we're showing what we want the other person to see. Right. We're very conscious in that time. Yes. Of what we're saying and what we're doing. And then we get a little bit comfortable. Mm-hmm. And then we start letting maybe our not so nice stuff.
And the real stuff comes out.
Right.
That's intimacy. I just took a 12-day trip with my girlfriend, which, it's a long time to be in tight space, know where to go. And it's like, intimacy is when you can fart all day in front of each other, and it's like you're not self-conscious about it. It's interesting. I mean, it's kind of like little hunting too, but that's the experience. It's like when you can just drop all of the acts. We're just animal bodies, and we've got these souls and these hearts and these beliefs, and how can we just be with each other and enjoy what's there?
Wouldn't you also think that that's when people really fall in love, is when they get beyond the honeymoon of like the all the pretty stuff, and they get into, wow, this is you, this is your essence. I've seen the dirty stuff and I still really like you. Like, isn't that when you would say when love really happens?
Well, it's the conscious love. It's a deeper kind. It has a deeper passion to it than the chemical variety. Never going to feel like that, because that's an artificial, unsustainable piece. It's wonderful. It feels great. You might as well enjoy it while it's there, but it can be rekindled in a different way.
Right.
And that's when you know who you're with. That's when you can choose to love the person you're with, as opposed to the fantasy of the person you're with. So it's genuine, and genuine is always going to be deeper than superficial.
So what happens when people actually get addicted to the chemicals that you talk about? Because I'm sure a lot of people, it's like the butterflies and the excitement, and then it wears off and they seek it again. I'm sure that exists. Do you see that?
Serial monogamy, absolutely. Have somebody new every 6 months, you get off on it, you feel it. Or some people have triangles in their history, so they'll have one, then they'll have another with an overlap, create some drama, which also creates strong feelings, break up, make up with the next, and it just, progresses. But it's not a relationship. I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's tricky. But it's not, wears you out. Going for the drama wears you out. Personally, I can say that. I certainly pursued that for many, many years in my life. I think when you get older, you don't have the same energy to sustain all of that.
When it gets tired, and then it just leaves you. You're still alone at the end of the day. You're not... don't have this intimacy that you talk about, doesn't exist because you never get to that level.
Right. And there's nothing worse than being alone with somebody right next to you.
Right. So let's talk about expectations for a minute in terms of relationships, because that's probably, I would imagine, when people get married, right? So they're taking their relationship to a whole new level, supposedly. I mean, it does change things,
Absolutely.
but there's these expectations of what this means.
Yes.
Is that what you see as being an issue of why maybe so many marriages don't last? Is that, okay, now we're together, we've signed it, the paper, it's the rest of our lives. Wait a minute, this is not what I thought it was going to be. You're not who I thought you were going to be, and we have a problem.
I don't know if that's the reason that things don't last. I think the reason things don't last is we stop doing what works. But yeah,
it's an example. What do you mean?
Well, when couples come to me that haven't had sex in 6 months or 6 years, which happens, it's like they're not doing what worked. When they were initially courting, they treated others with love, with kindness, with respect. They extended beyond themselves. There was a spiritual generosity that got lost somewhere when we take for granted or expect someone to do what we expect them to do. So expectation is in there. I remember when I was in college many years ago, I had bought a little placard that had a little dog on it and said, "Blessed are those with no expectations, for they shall not be disappointed." So yeah, we all have an image though. Society paints it, the movies, TV. It's not as rosy as it used to be, the expectation. I think relationships in the younger generations now, millennials and the rest, I don't think they are as rosy. They're not expecting that kind of love, romance, courtship. They're expecting a different level of non-intimate attachment in some ways. It's a hookup generation. I know it's a generalization, but there's more of that. The more, kids I talk to in their 20s and even 30s, but you do that for a while and that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with sex for sex sake. But again, sex with love is a different experience. So at some point, I think I want a relationship. I think I want to settle down with one partner. I think I'd like to start a family. And they don't have the tools. They don't have an experience of what that's like. And they're lost. They're just really lost. And that's a sad thing. And sometimes it's just training them what could be. But,
I'm so glad you brought that up because it is a very different world now. And first of all, the whole institution of marriage is probably going to be obsolete in probably not a long period of time because it seems like there's no holiness to it anymore. People get married and divorced, and you're married 5 times. Did it really mean anything any one of those times?
Well, it used to represent a different kind of commitment. Now it's just we'll do it until it doesn't feel good. And I'm not pro or con on that, but the reasons, originally marriage had nothing to do with romance. Right. Relationships had nothing to do with romance. That's a relatively new concept for the last 100+ years. It's to unite estates. It's for, financial purposes. It's for family ties. It's for security, not about love. And now, you don't necessarily, there's not the same stigma of having children out of wedlock that there was for so long. So people get married 5 years after they get pregnant and have kids, and that's okay too. So, but the institution doesn't mean as much, like you say. And there are many studies that show that couples who live together, cohabitate before they get married, have a higher divorce rate than couples who just get married.
What do you think that is?
Me, I blogged about it probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I think, to me, it's a different level of commitment. You live together is like, let's try this out, and if it doesn't work, no hard feelings. If you go in with, let's try it out, and if it gets too hard, I'm out, you're not going to last as long. You get married, there used to be at least a commitment that's more than a paper. This is, a spiritual connection. This is a vow that I'm going to work on this forever. Maybe not as realistic either, but if I work on it for the next 5 or 10 years, I'm certainly going to get some results. So I think you go in, you can't shift gears. You get married and it's like, oh, marriage is just like living together. It's no different. And you're going to get the result of when it's hard, you're going to leave. So, that's my my ecumenical or non-religious perspective on it.
Right. And maybe also when people are living together, you tend to sort of maybe give somebody more freedom in a sense, not necessarily stated, but once you're married, things may change, but yet a lot hasn't changed. So then someone may feel confined, or they feel like, wow, things, wow, we're not like we used to be.
Right.
And yeah, it's really really interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
would you suggest? I mean, you see couples, constantly coming in from different pasts and different patterns.
Mm-hmm.
That when you go from one relationship to another, so people get out of one. There's a lot of people that they're just like you said, they're habitual, they're serial monogamous, or they're habitual daters, whatever you call it.
Right.
Without taking the time in between to reassess, aren't
Mm-hmm.
you in a sense creating energetically from the same place that you just left?
You're preaching to the choir on that one. I think the place you end a relationship in is this place you start the next one in. So if you end it in drama and anger and whatever, you're carrying that into the next one. If you take some time to try and release some of that work on it, you've got a better shot at coming from a different place. So absolutely, jumping from one to the next to avoid what it feels like to be with yourself.
Right.
Is there, because again, it's two whole people coming into a relationship. Yes, I'm putting the relationship as a priority some of the time. I'm putting me as a priority some of the time. I'm putting you as a priority some of the time. But it's its own entity, and if we're not clear about that and how to take care of each other, then you really do have nothing, and it's not going to stick.
Right. And many times what you'll do is you'll just want to alleviate the hurt. So by getting the attention of somebody new, you kind of feel, it's an ego thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I was rejected, but look at that. I still got it. Someone still finds me attractive. So we kind of put a Band-Aid on the situation instead of like you said, becoming whole within ourselves and saying, wow, this didn't work. This is actually the kind of relationship that I would like. That's what I'm talking about in terms of being conscious about. I'm looking back and I'm evaluating, this is what did or didn't work for me, and this is what I would really like to create going forward. But
if you can do that kind of postmortem and do it, we're not as neutral and analytic about it at that point. It's like but it's really, in the context of a relationship, how do you ask for your needs? Do you know what your needs are? Are you willing to ask? What are you willing to do if your partner says no, if they reject it? Now how do you deal with it? Which is why many people don't ask, because they don't want to face that possible rejection, as opposed to, well, of course I want to do this for you. I love you, and if this makes you happy, let's go do this or that or whatever it is. Or let's try this, or let's go there. I've never been there. So it's interesting. And then, the new crop of designer relationships now that are non-monogamous and interesting. So that's a whole nother creature that for some is really valuable. For some, it's an escape from themselves as well. Any form is a good form for somebody.
Now, do you suggest people go to individual counseling as well as couples counseling at the same time?
Depends. It depends. Certainly, I don't recommend they just do individual with nothing else, because the research shows if I'm an individual and my partner's an individual, we're going to be two strong individuals. My fingers were up here. I was too low below the camera. But, we're going to be two strong individuals, and then there's no mutuality. There's no interdependence.
Right.
And it's tricky. In America, at least, we're raised with the belief system of independence, a rugged individual. You have to be able to take care of yourself. If not, then you're weak. Then it's pathological, and you're needy. And so then some people become counterdependent. They push against any vulnerability. Some become codependent. They're more focused on taking care of their partner than themselves. But the healthy mutuality is an interdependence. We find a way to build something together, to be partners together. And it's terrifying for many, many people.
Right.
Or they don't have the tools to do it. They don't have enough sense of self to do it and negotiate, or sometimes it's knockdown dragouts to get to it. But it takes a lot of strength. Relationships are not for wimps.
Right.
Much easier being alone and being right about that.
Being okay with being alone, that's the alternative. It's just don't try to make something, just say you're not alone. If you can be alone and have a full life, and then you meet somebody, it's just going to be that all the better.
Well, then you're starting from a full cup instead. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some people, they're happier doing that. There's nothing wrong with any of it, but society has expectations. Oh, you're you're 35 and you don't have kids. Oh, you're 40 and you've never been married. Oh, what's wrong with you? As opposed to, well, maybe you like your life the way it is. You know, I don't know the truth. Everyone's different, but there's no one formula for everyone either.
Well, I've always said I wanted someone who was going to enhance my life. If you're not going to make my life better, you know what? I'm really happy. And I don't want someone who's going to deplete me.
Right.
I'm like kind of shocked to hear that because it's, you know, but wait a minute, isn't it better than being alone? No, actually it's not. If it's not, someone's leading you and you know, so, but everyone's got their own, they've got their own like thing. It's so individual.
It is.
So I don't know how in touch, well, you must be, I'm sure with some of your clients, how in touch you are with the dating world right now in terms of this interesting phenomena of these apps, these dating apps.
Right.
I've been dying to ask you about this because I've experimented with it myself and, you know, with someone who dated years ago where it was like the New York Magazine personals where you actually had to write a letter and put a photo and put it in the mail. I'm dating myself. It sounds like it's like the Stone Age, you know, and then it was like internet dating, which, okay, that's a whole other thing.
It was AOL. I remember AOL had their things and you had to wait 5 minutes for the picture to come down one line at a time.
Right. So there was like the photo and then you write a couple of paragraphs.
Yep.
And then, you know, then it went into, okay, now we have these apps, which to me, I mean, it's pretty much like looking at baseball cards and you're looking and some people don't even write anything and there's one photo.
Right.
And I just had such a hard time with this concept, especially if you're looking for something, you know, of any sort of depth, of any sort of connection with somebody. And then on top of that, there's the protocol and the etiquette, which is non-existent. First of all, do you have any experience with this yourself? And two, what are you hearing from your clients, if anything, about what this, it's a whole new phenomena to me that I just find it really fascinating.
Yes, I have experience with it. And yes, I have clients all the time, you know, it's, how do I meet people? Where do I meet people? What do I do? I mean, one yesterday, one of her goals was, let me see if I can remember this. Her goal was, what's the milieu? What's it like in the dating world now? Because she'd been married for 20 years. Like, and I said, what does it matter? It's like, what's it like? What's it like in the dating world is people get together. There's men that have been in sexless marriages for 30 years that get out of them and they want to, you know, bang everything in existence. There's women the same way. There's women that are afraid. There's men that are timid and shy and don't know how to meet people. It's the same dance. It doesn't matter. It's what do you want to make out of it? It's tricky. And yeah, I was on, like I said, the original AOL, and I first learned about all that from, I was at a single parent family camp maybe 20 years ago, and they said, yeah, go on this thing and you can meet people. And I did a little, it was fun, and it's hard to meet people these days, or that's one belief system. We usually meet people at school and at work. If you're out of school, you're not got that piece. At work, there are challenges at work. I can't meet anyone at work. It's self-limiting that way in general, but it's tricky. So where do you meet? You have to find common interests. Computers, you know, more power to you. 20% of people meet that way and have successful relationships, whatever that means. So
only 20%?
That's what they say.
Wow, I thought it'd be much higher than that.
Well, they meet, but the 20% are successful.
Oh, okay.
So it's another way to do it. And if you're in a busy life, and most of us have full lives, there's not a lot of time. And you go through the dance of what that is and what are the rituals. And, you know, does the man pay? Does the woman demur? Does the woman offer to pay and it's all these games as opposed to let's get to know each other. And you know each other in organic situations more readily than coffee dates and date dates and the rest. And, you know, the swiping thing, that's past me. I'm you know, that happened after I was happily in a relationship. You know, it's like, to me, it's like ordering off a menu.
Oh my God.
It's like, you know, it's just, it's fun to look at. It's just, to me, it's, I think 4 years ago, I actually met my current girlfriend on a dating site where she found me, and it worked. But, you know, I don't know what the odds are, but it's like, I just kind of sat around and looked. It was just entertaining every day to just look at who's there and what's there. And I had no real interest in dating anyone. It's just fun to look. But some people, they want to do more, and it's a challenge. I can't say I know about relationships. I know how to make better relationships. How to date is not my specialty. You know, there are plenty of dating coaches and the rest, and honestly, a number of them consult with me on just how to keep their relationships going well. Because
so you wouldn't have any, guidelines to tell people. I guess they have to go with what works for them. Like there are people that say, "Oh, don't sleep together for 3 months," or "Don't do this," or "Don't reveal too much," or "Don't be too available." You know, the old kind of dating rules.
Well, that's a dating game. It's manipulation of things. Yeah, I tell my single clients, patients, that it would be good to not have sex before you actually know who you're with. You know, it's because you don't. And sex changes everything, as we all know. So you would like to know at least who you're with beforehand. So, it's not realistic to say don't have sex for 6 months or 3 months. I say, why don't you take a month and see?
Right.
And it's rare that anyone can even do that. And I'm not judging, and I don't know that I could do that either. But, it's important to get to know who you're with. And you may have to wait to know who you're with until after you're in that. But sex changes our interactions. It changes it emotionally. It changes it physically. Our hormones are in a different way. Our bonding is in a different way. So we're connected in a different way. And does that mean something or not? For some it does. For some it doesn't. For some it does, and they deny it does.
Deny it, exactly.
Yeah. But it's tricky. It's better to wait a little bit, but it's not realistic to wait a long time because, again, you want to make sure you're physically compatible too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like you could write all day and all night and have a great intellectual piece, and the minute you meet, you might feel it or you might not. And it might grow if you give it a chance, but again, most people want to change the channel. It's like we have short attention span on television, we have short attention span on swiping. So I'm there once they're in something. I'm not a dating coach in that way. I'm clueless. It's like I'm socially I'm successful in spite of myself in these things.
So, all right. So kind of like in bringing this all together, what have you seen, or what the couples?
What haven't I seen?
What have you seen? What have you seen, Adam? In couples that have lasted, let's say 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, that, there are some people, they meet as teenagers, they're meant to be together, they have this wonderful life forever. Look, my parents are still married 60-something years. I've never been married. You think I would have a good role model, but I knew what I wanted, and that wasn't it. Doesn't matter. They're still married.
Being married doesn't mean you're happily married.
No, and I didn't want the marriage that they have, so it was, anyway, that's a whole other show. But, so what is there's no real secret, but what is it that makes these couples laugh? The happy ones. I'm not talking about the ones that tolerate each other, that bicker that you see, and they don't speak to each other over dinner. The ones that really have this, still have an excitement in their lives, still have this, I still love spending time with him. What is it? What do you see? Because I'm sure you must know some of them.
Well, I do, but they don't come to see me.
No, exactly. Exactly.
But anytime I meet a couple that's been together 20 or 30 or 40 years, I always ask them what their secrets are. And sometimes they tell me a little something and not. But to me, chemistry is important. It's not everything, but it's important. If it's really a glue that gets us through challenges, it's like you can remember you're the biggest pain in my ass, and I feel this oomph for you regardless. Chemistry is important. I think compatibility. It's like at the end of the day, you want to go to the same places on vacation. You want to have similar hobbies. It doesn't have to be everything joined at the hip, but you want to have some things that you share. So compatible values, compatible beliefs. I think some kind of spiritual life is important, whatever it is, distinguished from religion, but there's something, because you have to have something bigger than you to get through the challenges of life, because there will be challenges, sickness, death, all of it. It's going to happen to all of us if you're together long enough. There was a survey I remember on 60 Minutes, maybe 20 years ago, of non-octogenarians, or maybe I'm misspeaking there, but whoever's 90 or older, it's like the first thing is you have to learn to live with loss, because most likely everybody's gone. Of your generation, most likely, and sometimes of the generations below, they're gone. And the other is you have to find a meaning in your life, something to live for. So I think that's important. But with the couple, chemistry is important, compatibility, and I think it's commitment. Really, the couples that come see me, they ask, can we make it? Can we not? It's like, I don't know. My experience is if you love each other and you're committed to working it through, you have a much better chance of working it through. And that's the commitment to reignite it, to reinvent it, to refresh it. It's like, again, if you do what you did at the beginning, you're going to stay alive. You're going to feel that love. You're going to generate it because you love to give this person you love. You love to take care of them and have them take care of you. And there's that interdependence that's so beautiful.
Right. And still have dates and still take the time and still do the little gestures that you did. I mean, I think those things are really important, yet we kind of minimize them. We get involved.
It's little stuff. I remember I met a couple that were married maybe over 40 years, and they were funny. I asked, what's the secret? And the husband told me, he said, well, when we got married, I decided that she would take care of the little issues and I would take care of the big issues. And he said, the funny thing is we never got to big issues.
Wow.
So it's very sweet. But yeah, I mean, if you deal with the little shit, it doesn't have to become these big things. That's the truth.
Right. Well, then there's one other thing that you didn't mention that to me is almost like it's so important, and yet I think the concept of it is scary to people, and that is to give each other the space to continue evolving and growing as an individual. So that's something that when you think about it, if you get married when you're young, if you get married in your 20s, you're just still figuring out who you are.
Right.
You want to be continuing to evolve and grow as a person through your lifetime. And which is probably why people that get married young don't last, is because they do realize, oh my God, they're 30. Wow, this isn't really what I want. This is what I want. But I mean, how magical it would be to find a partner that not only wants you to be, wow, with me in this journey, but I want you to be the fullest version of yourself.
Right.
And if it means going out and studying this, or means that to me is magic.
It's deep love. It's you want what's best for your partner, regardless. It's.
Isn't that scary and threatening? Isn't that scary and threatening to a lot of people to think, oh, if you're going to grow, you're going to grow?
To everybody, it's threatening. It's like it's threatening. I want more time with you, but I have to give you the space to do this. It's threatening. I mean, just on that level, it's like I'm giving this gift, or I'm allowing, or I'm not allowing, because you're in charge of your life anyway. But I'm managing my insecurity around it. I'm giving you this, and it's a risk. It's a risk. You may go out there and outgrow me, or we might grow in different directions, but there's no guarantee on that. That's why I think it's the commitment to each other has to guide it too. Because if I want to do this, is this more important than this? Or we go, and again, you can't see it. Is this more important than this?
Right.
It's like if we're walking this path together, is the path more important, or is my growth? And I don't have the answer. It's
a good point. That is a good point. And what is this? What is my needing to go explore this about? Is it because I've always wanted to do this and I feel I need to, or is it because I'm pulling away of the relationship and I sort of that's actually a really good point.
It's it's like we run into other people, whether platonic or not, or emotionally tempting. I mean, a lot of emotional affairs happen on Facebook and the rest. And for some, that's a bigger deal than a physical affair. And, again, if our partner is a mirror, there's an infinite number of mirrors that we can see in that partner if we really look. We don't need to go outside and find a new mirror to necessarily teach us something. If we don't see it here, we're not looking that hard. We're taking it for granted again. We're not having experiences that bring up other pieces, because that's, to me, intimacy is you're with someone, and because you're with them, you're having experiences that bring up parts of you that you didn't know existed before. And then you're sharing those parts with your partner. That's the best.
That's great. Great. And I'd love to end on that. Adam, this has been great. I think you're amazing. I think
Thanks so much.
Anyone in the LA. Now, do you do Skype? Do you do phone?
I do Skype and phone. I was doing a session in Florida just this morning while I'm here in LA. So yeah, I'm available for consultations. Anyone that's listening, if you want to go to my website and contact me for a complimentary consultation, I'm happy to speak with you a little bit and see if I'm someone who can support you in what you're doing. But yeah, the world has really gotten smaller there. We can really work nationally, internationally so well now, and it's great.
Really cool. And are you still doing groups? I know you were doing, right? You're doing men's groups at some point.
I was, not as much, and it's, you know, the timing of it's not. I've been traveling more, so not so much, and I want a little more freedom from the geography of things. So I love to work with people face to face, but I'm moving more and more toward Skype face to face, or some people prefer telephone work. It's less distracting in a way. It's like it's safer without you having to look at me and me having to look at you. You can be in with you. So it's paradoxical but interesting.
Well, most of my coaching I do is by phone. And listen, you don't have distraction, you don't have the person that you're really focused. So if people want to find out more about you, they can go to thepassiondoctor.com.
Yes. Absolutely.
Adam, thank you so much. This has been great and enlightening and such great information. We could talk about this for hours. I mean, this topic is just, but
yeah, we can do it again.
It's a really good start.
Yeah. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.